Cool. I think we've got the stream going live now. So welcome to the live stream, live stream, guys, here for the Ryder Cup. What we're going to do is we're going to go over some of the pairings that came out just 30 minutes ago, talk about some of my projections for this week, as well as my player pool, some game theory stuff, because we have some really wonky scoring systems this week. We also have some wonky ownership that's going to be coming in because of the pairings coming out early, that sort of thing. So overall, going to be a very useful stream right here. A lot of recent information that came out. So without further ado, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the pairings. So let me go ahead and bring them up right here. In the first match, we're going to have Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth going against Jon Rahm and Sergio Garcia. So I called both those groups right there. I thought the American duo was going to be suiting it up for this event. Same thing over there with the Spanish duo going over with Rahm and Garcia. Over in the second match, we have Dustin Johnson and Colin Morikawa going against Paul Casey and Victor Hovland. And that's an interesting one right there. I think it's going to be a very closely contested match. I love how they match up. The third match, we're going to have Lee Westwood, who was definitely a surprise. I don't think many people thought he was going to crack that first event. And Matt Fitzpatrick going against Brooks Koepka and Daniel Berger. So the West Palm Beach boys right there. So you got to like that as well. For the fourth match, we have Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele, who everyone saw coming, going against Rory McIlroy and Ian Poulter. So a lot of interesting matchups right there. A few of them we expected. I think the only real surprises there might be Daniel Berger, might be Lee Westwood. But again, Lee Westwood, somebody who's been around forever, one of the most experienced players on the entire tour. So maybe shouldn't be as big a surprise as people are making it out to be. But what we're going to do is we're going to start off with my projections here. If you guys have any questions at any point, obviously feel free to put them down in the chat. I'll get to them when I see them there. But we're going to start off with the projections that I was able to update before we got on stream here. It accounts for people that are playing in the first slate. The ownership is updated for that as well. I'm also updating my player pool. So got it all done before then. Only had like 15 minutes to do so, that kind of thing, but we got it done. So starting off with the highest owned players, obviously the highest owned on my board right now being Rory McIlroy, somebody who's almost guaranteed to play all 5 matches. And I'm definitely going to have him, though. You know, he's one of those people who could go out there, win 3 or 4 matches. And if anyone wins over 3 matches this week, you're essentially going to have them in your lineups. Same thing with Jon Rahm. You know, he's paired up with Sergio Garcia, and I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case for the whole time. So you can see that's why I have them for different projections in terms of expected matches. I'm sorry, I'll bring that up over here so you can see that. So Jon Rahm at 4.8 expected matches. You can see I only have Sergio down here for 4.3, right? So obviously somebody who doesn't always have the putter. So if Padraig Harrington sees that he doesn't have the putter this week, I do expect him to potentially get benched. So that's why you're going to see differences between these projections. You can also see Jordan Spieth right here, a little bit lower than Justin Thomas. And by a little bit, I mean by 0.1 matches, right? Again, Jordan Spieth, a little bit volatile, sometimes doesn't have his game. So if that's the case, he might get pulled a little bit early, but again, I don't think that's very likely. Going down to Rory McIlroy at 4.8 matches, I think that's essentially a lock. Again, a little bit volatile, but he's a stalwart for that team. You can almost shoot him in for 5.0, but had to fill it in under the roster limit. You know, with these projections, I keep them as accurate as possible, right? I allot for the total amount of matches, and all these expected matches played add up to the total amount of 88 matches, right? So keep that in mind. Some of these had to be done just for probability purposes, right? I do think Rory plays all 5 matches, but there is a chance that he gets pulled due to injury, due to bad play, that kind of thing. That's why he's not 5.0. Talking about some of my value plays, so we're going to spread all over the board, and then we're going to go match by match, ways you could attack it, ways you can attack the certain pairings, that kind of thing. Going down to Ian Poulter, have him at 4 matches, seeing him out there for the first match, especially with Rory McIlroy. That's a good sign, right? They have a really tough matchup against Xander and Cantlay, but Ian Poulter, somebody who, if he gets out there, wins that first match, shoo him in for 5, right? So if he loses, though, they're going to split up Rory and Poulter, and maybe they can't find a good partner for Poulter, right? And he only plays 3 matches. So that's why I have him there at 4.0. Still my favorite value play on the board, though. A few other value plays that I'm looking at. Matt Fitzpatrick, great to see that he's out there in the first pairing. Somebody I have projected for 3.3 matches right now, but if he goes out there and kicks ass out there with Lee Westwood, right? Who expects that though, right? Lee Westwood's kind of past his prime, that sort of thing. Watch out for them. They could play 4, potentially even 5 matches. They're dark horse sleeper picks, and you can see down here, in terms of my player pool, need to get Westwood in there. He's a yes as well. So these are guys that I'm potentially playing. The guys that are blank, by the way, they're people that probably aren't going to make my pool. I'm going to be playing 150 lineups. So If they end up sneaking in, I'm not going to hate it or anything like that, but I'm trying to focus on the guys that are marked as yes, which 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, which is 11 out of 24 in the field. If I'm playing all 150, which I am in the main GPP, I might have to add in a few guys just literally to fit up 150 lineups, but there'll be sprinkles in at the very most. So talking about a few other value plays, guys. So and the guy I've noted as well was Daniel Berger, right? He's out there in the first session, $6,600, which is kind of no man's land in this field. Most people are looking to pay up for 3, potentially even 4 of those spend up options, and then mixing in 2 of those guys in the 5K range. As a result, guys like Daniel Berger are going to essentially get no ownership. I mean, most people are going to go to Paul Casey if you're in that range. I mean, and hell, you're definitely going to spend down the Ian Poulter as well, right? Those guys are much more established in this Ryder Cup. So I think Daniel Berger comes in massively underowned. So right now you can see my projections. Where's his ownership? So you can see I have him right now at 26.7%. I think that's extremely high. I think just due to the game theory aspect of this, he comes in probably closer to 14, maybe even 15% ownership. So it's something that I'm definitely going to consider tonight. I'm playing a ton of Daniel Berger just based on that fact alone. I mean, he's going to come in royally underowned. Again, that should be a yes, I believe. Yeah, I don't know my use markers. No, there's actually 12 players in my pool out of the 24. So I'm playing half the field. Might sprinkle in a few of these other guys. Now my numbers make sense. I was trying to play half the field. I felt like that was a good number for a field of 24 people, especially for a main GPP. I'm talking about a few guys in the mid-range I like. So we're kind of hopping around all over the place here, but trying to hit it in terms of priority here. Some of these mid-range options, especially the ones that aren't playing here in day one, are going to be royally underowned. So guys here like Tony Finau, I don't expect many people to play him at all. People like Tommy Fleetwood, who, Mollywood was the thing. He was out there. He played all 5 matches, won all of them. I mean, they absolutely snapped. And if you don't know what Mollywood is, that is Tommy Fleetwood and Francesco Molinari absolutely went off at the last Ryder Cup, also went off at the President's Cup. Those are guys that might get more playing time than we expect, right? Because they're so good in terms of their experience. Same thing with Tony Finau. I mean, the first 2 times he's played in Cup play, been unbelievable. Had one of the best performances in both of them. Not the best for the U.S. team. Justin Thomas has absolutely killed it. I mean, taking that home. But in terms of these 2 guys, I think there are people that people are sleeping on. People that are going to come in a lot lower owned because they're not on that first slate. But just because they're not playing the first of 4 group team slates doesn't mean they're not going to play the other 3. That is completely possible. They could still end up playing 4 matches. So you can see I have Tommy Fleetwood projected right now for 3 matches, at least picking up 2 of the other 3 group matches. Same thing over here with Tony Finau, right? 3.0. I think they have great upside though. So you can see I have Tommy Fleetwood as a no, just because I think the European side is going to lose this Ryder Cup. But Tony Finau down here, a blank. He may become a yes by the end of the day, right? If I'm sprinkling in people into this player pool, he's probably the first person I consider turning into a yes and making a core piece. And I haven't ran my lineups yet. I'm actually going to have to do a lot of them by hand because of the captain piece and not having a lineup optimizer made for this, especially for golf, right? I'm used to having a regular setup, and I use a custom lineup builder, right? So I don't use it from a website or anything like that. I may sprinkle in some Tony Finau. We're going to have to see how that works out. Hopping around to some of these mid-tier guys, I loved Bryson before the week. You can see right now I have him as a yes. He may become a no, right? He's not playing in that first session. I don't even know who they're going to pair him up with, right? So let's assume all the guys that are already playing are already off the board. Tony Finau could be a partner. They would be effective partners. I'd like to see that. But who else really could they be pairing him with, right? Scotty Scheffler, somebody he practiced in the practice rounds with. I think he would be the prime candidate for it. If that's the case, I don't love their winning potential. I think I talked about it earlier in the week. The more I thought about it, though, both of them are really good off the tee. Both of them struggle with their approach play at times. So if they end up both struggling with the approach play, it could look really ugly. And their volatility could be great in terms of 4-ball, right? Going out there, just try to make a shit ton of birdies, that kind of thing. But in terms of alternate shot, I think that they're a little bit capped. So what that means is that they have a maximum of 3 matches played, in my opinion. That's not going to cut it, right? If you're only playing 3 matches, I don't think that's going to be enough to take down GPP. They'd have to go 3-0, and they're not necessarily Ryder Cup stalwarts. One of them's Ryder Cup rookie in Scotty Scheffler. Now on the other side, you have Bryson DeChambeau, who's 1-3. Horrible, right? Was absolute dog shit at the President's Cup, so much so that he got benched. So, I mean, the more and more I think about it, I'm probably going to change him to a no here. It's just I can't see myself playing any Bryson DeChambeau, especially because he's not in this first batch of matches. So what I want to do now, guys, is kind of go through the ownership and talk through how I'm handling each player. specifically one-on-one. So it's going to be different for each player. And you may say, oh, what about the combinations, the pairings, right? Aren't you just going to play the cheaper of the two, play them at the same level in the same lap? No, not at all. That's exactly what most of the field's going to do. And I would argue that that's not necessarily going to be optimal, right? We're going to have pairings that end up getting split up. We're also going to have pairings that come out of nowhere, especially like in that Jon Rahm's case. I don't expect him to be a Sergio Garcia the whole time. I actually only expect them to be together for this first pairing. So there's going to be a lot of volatility, especially on that European side. So I'm not going to be stacking up 2, 2, and 2 in terms of stacks. It's probably going to look like 2 Americans, maybe even 2 American stacks, and then potentially 2 Europeans that aren't matched up in this first pairing. So we'll talk about it one-on-one though. But Jon Rahm going to be my favorite captain this week. And again, a lot of people are going to go to Sergio Garcia because they see him paired up in this first matchup. They're going to assume that Jon Rahm and, the world's number 1 player matched up with Sergio Garcia, an absolute stalwart in the Ryder Cup, are just going to steamroll, go 4-0, play their 5th matches. They're both good as well. I expect him, not Jon Rahm, but Sergio Garcia to be the extremely popular captain, right? A lot of people are going to start clicking on him because he's so much cheaper. You can see, let's see the price difference. The price difference is $2,800. And there's this false misconception out there that the players score the same no matter what in this event. No, it's per match, right? They score the same for each match because as a team, you win each hole, or as a team, you lose each hole. That's what Draftkings means by saying that. It does not mean that Jon Rahm, if he goes out there and goes 5-0 and, Sergio Garcia is matched up with him the first time, wins his first match, and then loses his next 4, does not mean that they score the same amount of points. I think a lot of people out there have that misconception, and I don't understand where that's coming from. So, no, I'm going to be going to Jon Rahm a lot at captain because, first of all, I think that he wins his singles match a lot more than somebody like Sergio Garcia. I also think that Jon Rahm's going to get matched up with other players. So people potentially like Matt Fitzpatrick, right? You could take the Westwood out. Do we think he's going to play all 4 matches? Absolutely not, right? So what's going to happen with that pairing? Likely 2 players like Jon Rahm, potentially Matt Fitzpatrick, get matched together. So there's a lot of volatility here that I think a lot of people aren't considering. A lot of game theory that I'm going to be implementing, such as using the more expensive captain. Same thing in the Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth case, right? Here you have, let's see, a $600 price difference, right? Not a big deal, but when you put him at the captain slot, that's $900. And I guarantee you that Jordan Spieth is going to come almost twice as owned at captain as Justin Thomas. And let's be honest here, Jordan Spieth's never won a singles match at the Ryder Cup. That is still a thing to this day. So for me, Justin Thomas could go out there, just win his singles match, and Jordan Spieth not. And you end up taking down a GPP just because you made that difference, right? So that $600 or that $900 at the captain slot really doesn't make all that much difference, especially on a 24-player slate. So just consider that kind of thing, right? You might think that you're big brain going out there and picking the cheaper of the 2 guys, and you may end up shooting yourself in the foot because you're taking a guy with, first of all, higher ownership, likely the worst player too, right? I mean, let's compare the Jon Rahm, Sergio Garcia situation. It's not even close, right? Sergio Garcia is 10 times more likely to be benched in this scenario than somebody like Jon Rahm. So just beware of those kind of things when you're coming down to game theory, right? Let's go down the boards talking with Rory McIlroy. I think he's almost a shoo-in to play 5 matches. He's potentially my favorite play on this entire slate. I think if the Europeans are going to put up any fight at all, it's going to be because Rory McIlroy and Ian Poulter absolutely snap. So you can see Rory McIlroy, I have him projected right now for 9.4 value. I believe that's the best on the slate of anybody up top. Yes, it is. And if you go down here, I have Ian Poulter projected for 10.9 value. That's the best value of the entire slate. So you can see that's even with relatively modest win projections over here. You can see Ian Poulter at 54.5%. I do think that they lose that first matchup. It's a really tough one that they have. You can see Rory McIlroy 56.5%, same kind of thing. So it's not like I have them out there winning 65% of their matches. These are modest win rates right here, right? The highest win rate in the entire slate. Let's see what we had out of my simulations. There's a tie, it seems, between Justin Thomas and Bryson DeChambeau, believe it or not, right? I believe that this golf course is perfect for Bryson. You can see my overall model rank is number 2 right there. I just don't think he plays that much, right? You can see that's why he only comes in as a 6.15 points per dollar. I mean, that's well below everyone else on the slate. So just keep in mind that course fit, can take you a long way on other slates, especially with unknown slates like we had last week, at the Barbasol. Last week we had the Fortinet and that kind of thing. You can really rely on the custom model rankings, but not necessarily so much this week. It's a lot more about game theory, a lot more about strategy and everything like that. I'll remind everyone, by the way, you can put anything down in the chat in terms of questions. It can be FanDuel, Draftkings, it can be, I know there's some fantasy leagues out there for golf, that kind of thing. Feel free. So we're going to get to Sam Blake's question. With that being said, he's playing FanDuel. So again, don't be afraid to put any questions out there. It can be Jock Market as well. I don't know if you guys know what Jock Market is. It's a stock market version of DFS. They have their stock exchange closing, I believe, at 9 p.m. tonight. So pretty cool if you haven't checked that out before. But anyways, getting into Sam's question here. Playing FanDuel, who do you think for MVP, Rahm or Thomas? So again, the scoring system over there is pretty similar to DraftKings. They also have it very similar where the MVP costs twice as much. Actually, no, I believe it costs the same, but only scores 1.5 times. So I don't play much FanDuel DFS, to be quite honest with you. But in terms of raw projection, for me, it's Justin Thomas, right? Justin Thomas went 4-1 in his first ever Ryder Cup. Was great at the President's Cup as well. Also pretty much a shoo-in for the 5 matches. And essentially, if you think the Europeans are going to win this Ryder Cup, then you take Rahm at your captain slot. If you think the Americans are going to take home this Ryder Cup, then you take JT. It's really that simple to me, because that matchup, believe it or not, that first matchup, tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., I think could decide the Ryder Cup, guys. And I'm not just saying that to create hype for this or anything like that. I have no incentive to hype up NBC's broadcast, but that first match could decide the entire thing. I mean, we've seen some super close Ryder Cups in the past, and I think those are the best groups that each team can put out. So we'll have to see. And you said Rory. I really do like Rory in this slate. You can see he's my highest point per dollar play. So if you're having trouble picking guys down low when you take somebody like Justin Thomas at captain, perhaps go to Rory McIlroy then, because I do think he's essentially a guarantee to play all 5 matches. I don't have him as a high winning percentage as somebody like JT, at least because I'm taking the Americans to take this whole thing down. But he has a much softer matchup in round 1 than somebody like JT or somebody like Rahm, because those two buzzsaws are running into each other, right? So maybe I'm talking myself into Rory. Actually, yeah, I'll say that. Rory McIlroy would be the pick, just because his round 1 matchup, it's the only matchup we know of at this point, right? He may end up getting a good draw for the rest of the time as well. So yeah, Rory McIlroy in that sense. So what we're going to do now, guys, we're going to talk about a few more of the pairings here that I thought were interesting. One is Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay. So a lot of people have them as a shoe-in to play all 4 group matches together, get that 5th round by themselves, play all 5. And I understand that that's completely possible. They're really good friends. They've played well in the past, right? But the first thing I'll say to you is take a look at their Zurich Classic record. So they were really good in the 4-ball. They went out there, they made a ton of birdies, went out there, really distanced themselves in the field. But in the alternate shot, they struggled, and they were not good, right? They actually shot over par both days. It's probably the reason they didn't win that golf tournament. And surprisingly, the most on Thursday, I believe they shot 3 over. I mean, it was ugly. And if they go out there and they lose that first match this weekend, it's a tough matchup too. I don't necessarily think they, first of all, play all 4 matchups. I mean, they could easily get broken up as well, right? You can end up seeing Bryson going out there with Cantlay the next day for all we know. I'm worried about that. So you can see here, I have them down as nose. They're my bold fade of the week. I mean, you're going to have to fade someone up top. For me, it's going to be Cantlay and Xander. I'm also fading this JT Morikawa matchup because I don't think Morikawa is good enough to putt here. I mean, at a Ryder Cup, you got to sink a lot of putts, and an alternate shot, they could really struggle. So I think Colin Morikawa is the first one to get benched in that matchup. I think that pairing of Xander and Cantlay could get broken up, especially if they lose that first match. I mean, they've been horrible at alternate shot in the past outside of Ryder Cups, right? The Ryder Cups, they've looked great, but there's a lot more recent experience like this Zurich Classic that showed that they suck in that kind of scenario. So I look at the most recent form, even if it's not as high key, right? The Ryder Cup's a whole new deal. You have to deal with a little bit more pressure, but it's the same format, right? So I have a little bit of a problem with that. So to keep that in mind. And again, with Dustin Johnson, he's getting a lot more steam than at least I think my 27.8% ownership at least gives him credit for. I think he's going to come in around 34% ownership. He's going to be one of the higher owned guys on the slate. And if he ends up losing with Colin Morikawa, God knows if he ends up being matched with somebody like Scotty Scheffler, Bryson DeChambeau, something like that, and they end up losing their match. So he's going to be somebody who just gets faded because I don't like Colin Morikawa, and you can't play everyone else on this slate. Going to go ahead and see if there's any questions down here. DFS, I took Paul Casey at the captain slot. I do think that's a good way to get unique, right? A lot of people are going to go with one of those studs at the captain slot and try to fill in a few value options. If you go to somebody like Paul Casey, you can go to somebody like Ian Poulter. You can go even lower to somebody like Lee Westwood or Matt Fitzpatrick potentially, and end up taking 4 of the studs, right? It gives you a lot of flexibility. So Mamba, I do not hate that strategy at all. I'll probably have a lot of lineups with the same kind of idea tonight, especially because I'm max entering and building them all by hand. So going to be doing that. So getting back with some of the interesting pairs that we have, I do think that Ian Poulter, again, I said it before, he's my favorite value play on this slate. He's somebody who's going to play an absolute crap ton of matches, even if they lose that first game, right? You know, we've seen Rory McIlroy and Ian Poulter kind of struggle in the past, but put Ian Poulter with somebody else and you can easily find that magic. We've also seen them play very well in the past. So, you know, a little bit of hit or miss right there. And if they hit, you're definitely going to have them in your lineups, because if they win that first match, if he wins that second match, he's playing all 5, guarantee you, especially with Ian Poulter. Let's talk about some guys I hate. Bernd Wiesberger, he's probably the last guy I try to sprinkle in. You can see he comes in as the lowest owned guy in the slate, so the only guy in the single digits, which would normally make me excited, but the guy's game is not fit for this golf course. I mean, you'd have to pair him up with Rory McIlroy or something like that, so maybe he makes a lineup or two, you know, in case something crazy like that happens. You know, they end up splitting up Poulter and Rory and putting him with Bernd Wiesberger. They could find some success that way, so we'll have to see with that. He's probably my least favorite option on the slate. Harris English was somebody I talked about in my videos earlier this week. Kind of came a little bit down on him just because he didn't make these first set of lineups. I thought he was a prime candidate to be matched up with Brooks Koepka. It was not my predicted pairing or anything like that. I did think the West Palm boys would be put together, Berger and Koepka there. But anyways, Harris English was a play before the week, but I've cooled down on him a little bit. I definitely think I'm going to sprinkle him into some lineups though, because again, he's only $5,400. He's coming in with great form. Number 3 in shots gained total over the last 2 months in the field, only behind Jon Rahm and Patrick Cantlay. So obviously number 1 player in the world, the guy that won the FedEx Cup. And then there's Harris English, right? I don't think many people would be able to predict that if you gave it to them as a trivia question, that sort of thing. So definitely somebody I'll sprinkle in. So I just don't have him down as a yes, because I only have him projected, let's see, right now for 2.6 matches. So not somebody I'd be playing in cash, right? It's a little bit of a gamble, right? We're assuming that he's going to play tomorrow afternoon. If he wins that match, perhaps he earns an alternate shot chance, ends up playing 3 matches in the group play, and then gets his 4th single match, right? So there is a way that he plays 4 matches. It's just not as likely as somebody like Matt Fitzpatrick that we know is going out there in that first round and can easily win that first round. He already has that opportunity. Obviously, there's a huge ownership difference, right? So you can see I have Matt Fitzpatrick at 27.5%. Down here, we have Harris English at 12.3%. So a huge, massive difference in the ownership there. And in lineups where I have a ton of chalky options, the clear choice is going to be to go to Harris English, right? Because I'm playing in a GPP. I don't necessarily want to be duplicating a lineup with 1,000 other people and splitting 100,000 between 100 people and just taking home $5,000 or something like that. I want to be splitting with, you know, at most 2 or 3 people, making a lineup that's not duplicated, especially in a GPP with over 40,000 people, going to be nearly impossible. And I think if you're trying to make your lineup completely unique, you may be handicapping it a bit. They did a very good job with the pricing this week. And before the week, I was considering leaving $400, $500 on the table in every lineup. But when I was running my sims earlier on, it didn't look good. I mean, you weren't able to fit in even 3 of the studs up top. You kind of had to live in that mid-tier range, you know, the Bryson female kind of, and you don't want to be in that range. It's not ideal at all. Those guys, we don't even know if they're going to play over 2 matches. So I am spending all my salary this week. I'm just trying to make sure that I fit in a guy below 20% ownership at the very least, if not 2 guys below that range. Let's go through a few more questions in chat. So Sam Blake again. I have MVP Thomas. So Garcia, Fleetwood, Poulter, and Rory. So Poulter and Rory, absolutely love. Fleetwood, I'm not so sure about. Garcia, love that he's with Rahm. If they end up being matched up for the whole time, there's a ton of conflicting reports on it, by the way. Earlier on today, it was like Rahm and Garcia are for sure thing. You heard it from like 3 or 4 people. And then about an hour later, those 3 or 4 people all tweeted at the same time, not so sure about that anymore. So maybe they tweeted it out, they weren't supposed to. And then, you know, Rahm and Garcia were their agents or something like that. Like, hey, what the hell are you doing? Like, what the fuck's that about? That kind of thing. They kind of retracted it. So maybe they are a sure thing for the 4 matches. I don't think they are. So I still like it, though. I mean, I think it's a good contrarian play. JT, maybe we've already talked about. I think he'd go out there and go 5-0. So I don't think that's bad. But Fleetwood, probably the only one there that I would push back on to say anything. I'm going down to Mamba. When you're building your lineups, do you build them when playing 4 rounds? So not sure what you mean by that. So no, all my projections, at least for what I have over there in the sheet, are set up for this match play format. So it's based on expected matches, winning percentage, expected points winning any match that you win. The better the player, the more of a bonus you get for winning a match, that sort of thing. It's dynamic. You know, it's not perfect, right? This is the first time that we're having this kind of format. So this is my first go at it. But yeah, it's dynamic. It's not based on 4 rounds of regular match play, if that's your question. So what we want to do now is I'm going to go over to DraftKings. So I'm going to open this up over here, and we're going to build a few lineups. So these aren't going to be necessarily lineups I'm entering. They probably will be, to be quite honest with you. So don't go out there and just steal every single one of them. But the whole point here is going to be to show you how I'm thinking and what the kind of thought process I'm going through when building a lineup, because this week is unlike any other, right? We're not just going to be clicking in the highest projected owned players. If you do that, you're going to duplicate yourself with 1,000 or even 2,000 other people. And like I said, I'm not trying to win $2,000 for first place when I'm max entering the main GPP. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here for you guys. We're going to go over to the DraftKings side of things. Here we go. All right. So we're not going to start with the captain. So let me go ahead and explain that here after this. We're not going to start with the captain. A lot of people love to start their lines with the captain, right? And when you do that, you inherently make yourself a lot like everyone else, right? So we're going to take the more unique approach, and we're going to draft our captain last. And you guys would be surprised, just by doing that alone, the lineup that you end up generating ends up being unique. You end up leaving a little bit of salary on the table because the dispersions between the price tags become a little bit higher when you're captain, right? So you might get cut off from somebody from $100, and there might be a $600 gap in there, and that might be a good way to leave some salary on the table. So I absolutely love building this way. I hate that I told you guys that. It's kind of like my secret weapon. Damn it. Oh well, all right. I'm gonna tell you eventually. My goal here, I'm not a professional DFS player. I was at one point for 2 years, and I've scaled back to making content just because, first of all, it's still profitable. I can do that on the side. But second of all, I want to pass on the information at some point. I mean, it's going to get figured out at some point. Some of it already has. The meta changes from time to time to time to time. So eventually it was going to come out. People are going to figure out that building by going with the golfers first and then doing the captains a thing. But I'm sure there's people out there that do that. Many of you in the chat may have already started doing that, but it's not mainstream or anything like that. It eventually will be. So let's start off with some of our players. So what we're going to do here is we're going to assume that the USA wins. So yeah, you knew that? Okay, cool. Go USA. See, you may have knew that, but Jimmy, to be honest with you, I think that might be like 1 to 2% of people. I mean, most people start off the captain slot. Most people are very simple-minded when it comes to their DFS lineups, to be quite honest with you. So we're going to start off with a USA onslaught, right? So that's what I expect to happen. This golf course definitely favors the USA side. It's not even close, to be quite honest with you. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that Daniel Berger, Brooks Koepka matchup there, and that's going to be unique, right? And not a lot of people are going to stack that. It's definitely going to get a little bit of an ownership boost because it is on this first slate of games. We know that they're going to be a matchup, but most people are going to go to Xander Cantlay. They're going to try and fit in JT and Spieth. So going a US onslaught without those two, I think could be very valuable. So we're going to go and take JT and Spieth here. So what I want to do now is I want to think about the captain slot, right? So we're gonna do that because we're gonna add in another matchup here of pairings. So I want it to be a European, and I want it to be a European that's not playing one of these two stacks. So the options here that we have, let's think. We could go down to, is Ian Poulter playing? No, he's not. So we could go to Ian Poulter, right? So if we went to somebody like Ian Poulter, we wouldn't be able to match him up with Rory McIlroy, but we could potentially take somebody like Victor Hovland, right? So Victor Hovland's in my player pool. Don't necessarily hate that. We'd only be leaving $100 on the table, so might not be unique, right? We're probably going to be duplicating with 5 to 6 people at the very least. DJ's a fade for me, so he's going to be out of my player pool. Bryson DeChambeau would be somebody I was worth sprinkling in, but we're making one of our first lineups of the slate here, right? So this would be, potentially even a main GPP lineup for me. So wouldn't want to be taking Bryson DeChambeau. Same thing with Fleetwood. Morikawa, same thing. He's a fade. It would be, I think, yeah, we would go with Victor Hovland in this case. So you can guys, wait, what the fuck? I hit Torohan. Okay, never mind, guys. Fuck that up. You hit the wrong guy. So we're going to have a little bit more salary than I thought. No, I put him in the wrong slot. On Poulter, get in there. Yeah, so we're not going to have enough salary for Victor Hovland. That's unfortunate. So yeah, I probably would go down to somebody like Tony Finau or Sergio Garcia, but because we need another European, Sergio Garcia is the person who would fit this lineup. Leaving $1,200 on the table probably means you're going to be unique on the slate. So if you're in a GBP, I really like this kind of lineup. On the converse, we could probably swap these two. So let me see if it could be fit Sergio Garcia at captain, and then Ian Poulter. So This might be the better combination, the better permutation, to be honest with you. So taking the more expensive player, Sergio Garcia, putting him at captain, and then having Ian Poulter down there. Having this 4-2 split is probably the kind of split that you want if you're looking at US onslaught. If you're looking at a England onslaught, not England, European onslaught, you're probably looking at a 4-2 European to USA kind of thing. I think that's the best way to take that, at least in my opinion there. So let's go ahead and make another lineup. So what we're going to do here is make a European onslaught lineup. I think if Europe goes out there, absolutely destroys the USA, it's probably because Ian Poulter and Rory McIlroy get a shit ton of work done. So we're going to go ahead and start with those two. We're not going to put them at the captain slot, though. Actually, yeah, we are. We're going to put Ian Poulter at the captain just so we can save some salary. I just want to show you guys what one of these studs and duds kind of lineups looks like. So we have that together. We could go with JT and Spieth. We did that on the other lineup, though. So I'm going to go ahead and take Jon Rahm in this case. Also going to take Sergio Garcia. Okay, I don't know. Jon Rahm, Sergio Garcia. So right now we have 4 European players. So we're done with that side of the ball. Now we have to consider who we're using as run backs on the American side. So you can see we only have $7,200 left. So in this kind of scenario, especially if the US is getting their ass whooped, I'm probably not going to put a pair of players together. I'm probably more willing to just match up players that are on their own. So in this case, I'm going to go with Justin Thomas, somebody who's great in singles, has been great in their group matches again. And if he ends up getting split up from Jordan Spieth, I still think he could find a ton of success at this Ryder Cup, right? So if they lose that first match on Friday against Jon Rahm and Sergio Garcia again, that's a power group as well, right? So could very well happen just based on talent alone. We could see Justin Thomas playing by himself. We could only afford Bernd Wiesberger in that case. So maybe that's not the best choice, right? So I don't think we want to go the whole way down to Bernd Wiesberger. So let's reconsider. We could take somebody like Cantlay, but again, I'm not so sold on them. I'm going to be full fading them. You have to full fade someone. Don't want to add another European. Don't want to be putting in Xander. So we're going to have to go a little bit further down the board. So we obviously have to consider that. I mean, we could use Wiesberger, right? I kind of mentioned that before. He's going to be single digit owned. It could go that way, but I'm not really confident doing something like that. We could go to Brooks Koepka. I don't have him projected for all that many matches. Let me go ahead and check how many we have him for. Exactly 3.2. So not somebody I want to use in this lineup. Perhaps Tony Finau, right? We've seen success from him in the past. In a European onslaught, we also have to consider that that would mean the U.S. probably loses a lot of these initial matches, right? A lot of these pairings are more likely to get broken up. So Tony Finau could end up playing 4 matches if the U.S. gets off to a rough start, just because they try to switch things up. And if he goes out there and wins a match, right, he can earn some more time that kind of way. Daniel Berger is playing in that first set of matches. So maybe he's one of the ones that loses and ends up getting switched up, right? If Daniel Berger loses his first match, he's not going out again, right? He's going to end up playing just the singles, playing his 2 matches. So I wouldn't want to go there. Again, we're not going to a European. So our options right now, it would be to go to Harris English. It would be Scotty Scheffler. That's probably about it. And I would go Scotty Scheffler, right? Somebody who, one of the longer players on tour. Harris English is at least above average with his length, but Scotty Scheffler, an elite off the tee player. And if you guys saw my preview earlier on the week where we went over the best statistics, what's correlated to success here at Whistling Straits, the biggest stat was shots gained off the tee. It wasn't even close. It was actually number 2 out of 56 on tour when I ran my modeling. So the only other place where it was more important was, I'm trying to think of this off the top of my head, I believe Aaron Hills. Yeah, Aaron Hills, where they had the one PGA championship. So insane. And there was only one other course, and we saw that one time. So it's not like something we see every single year. Let's see. I cannot in a good conscience take Poulter. I know it's the Ryder Cup, but the course is long as hell. The recent ball striking sucks ass. I'm there with you, right? It sucks. You know, I'm an American fan. I'm completely rooting for America. I have bets on America, an absurd size bet on America to win this Ryder Cup. So yeah, it's tough, right? But at the same time, he's so good. He's matched up with a long hitter like Rory McIlroy. So if he goes out there, you know, he's only hitting it out there 285. Rory McIlroy is going to have a long iron and has more than enough length to make up for it and get into a green. On the converse, if Rory McIlroy goes out there and hits a bomb 340 yards, he only has, you know, a mid iron in. You know, he's used to hitting long irons into these greens. I think it's a great matchup. I mean, we've seen it kind of fall apart, especially on the European courses. They haven't played as well over there, and that's just because the courses aren't this long. But I think at a long track like this, they could be a little bit of a sleeper pick in terms of their matchups. So I'm still playing them. Again, it doesn't help my conscience, but I'm doing this for my wallet, right? You know, I essentially enter these DFS lineups. I'm max entering the main contest this week. the $10 contest, and just going to throw them in the bag. Not going to look at it, right? I was going to root for America the whole time. And come Sunday, if I end up checking my Draftkings account and I won the $100,000 on my own, all the better, right? If I end up completely striking out and losing my $1,500 in entry, hell with it, right? I just want the US to win. That's the main point right there. So we're gonna go ahead and do another lineup, and this is gonna be by far the most unique setup. So typically when we're doing Golf DFS lineups, guys, when you do a balanced build, that would be, not taking two guys up top like in the 10K range, not living in the 6K range, kind of, living in that 7K, 8K, 9K range on DraftKings. You can't really do that this week, but the way you can make a balanced build with this week's lineups is to take 3 Americans, 3 Europeans, and have them not really matched up in terms of pairs, right? Kind of mix match all over the place. That can end up being optimal, guys. I think a lot of people aren't considering that this week. When it comes to a game theory perspective, just thinking of term like ROI, like if you're playing cash games, you undoubtedly want to go out there and match guys up that are playing together, especially guys that we think are going to play together for all 4 rounds. So in cash games, Xander and Cantlay, great plays, right? But this isn't a cash play video. This is all about GPPs. So for GPPs, they're not a great play because of the ownership, at least in my opinion. I also think that they could be split up eventually, but on the cash side, they could be a great play. It's just, it's an interesting dynamic right there. You have to consider what you're going for in terms of a lineup, right? If you're looking for upside, if you're looking for more of a consistent play, if you're looking for consistency, sure, match people up, right? But their upside might be a little bit capped, because what if they go out there and don't win? If they end up winning, sure, they could end up smashing at their price tag, but then you're duplicated with half the field, because everyone's going to do that, guys. Everyone's going to go out there, match up 2, 2, and 2 terms of these first pairings. And I guarantee you, if you end up entering a lineup like that, you're at least duplicated with 100 to 150 people. To make yourself unique, all you have to do is only put 2 of those stacks together. So use 4 of your 6 spots with a stack and make the other 2 spots mixed and matched. That's what I'm going to do for almost all my lineups this week. I highly recommend that, just because doing that alone is going to make your lineup 10 times more likely for being unique. You're not really going to have to look at ownership as much. You can just build based around what you think is optimal, kind of mix and match the best plays in and out, kind of like a best player available sort of thing, right? And I think that's the best way to make lineups this week. You have to make sure you're being unique if you're in a GPP. In a cash game, go ahead and put out 3 stacks, right? That could very well end up being unique this week. If you're playing in a cash game and you get 2 of those stacks right, they go out there, win at least 3 matches, you're winning your cash game. So in cash, I completely understand it. So I always get questions on that about cash versus GPP. And that's the main difference right there. I don't really think we have to look into it more than that. Jimmy says the Westwood Fitzpatrick team seems like a sacrifice to the golf gods. Yeah, man. I mean, tough matchup, right? Lee Westwood, I didn't expect him to play more than 2 matches. Hell, he still might only play 2 matches, right? So you're going to see this influx of ownership to him, and they could go out there and get their ass whooped. I do like Fitzpatrick, though. His shots gained off the tee numbers are a very sneaky good fit for this Whistling Straight golf course. So yeah, and Philly Joe says Koepka and Berger should crush Westwood and Fitzpatrick. They don't have any length off the tee. Yeah, agreed, right? Like Jimmy was saying, sacrifice to the golf gods. Second of all, this goes a huge way. Brooks Koepka loves Daniel Berger. They play together like every day when they're down here in Florida. I've been to golf courses in West Palm Beach and seen them playing together. Like, they're good buddies, and they have a very similar attitude, right? They both would much rather be on a boat, out with some hoes, drinking some beer, that kind of thing, right? Like that's literally like they're frat boys. Like, that's the way they talk. Like, they go on, they're the perfect pairing. Like, they're the West Palm Beach boys. And yeah, they could crush, right? And if they do, they end up crushing Lee Westwood and Fitzpatrick. And again, I think that's probably the biggest differential in terms of winning percentage. I have it at a 60-40. A lot of the other ones are more like a 56, 46 and a half, 53 and a half sort of thing. That's a pretty big difference in terms of the winning potential there, at least in my opinion. So completely agree with you there, Philly Joe. So going to go over one more lineup for you guys on here. If you guys have any questions, again, feel free to put them down in the chat. We'll cover any that you have. I'm going to get out of here in the next 15 minutes. Sooner, if you guys don't have any questions, that's okay with me. I got to get to making my lineups here for Thursday Night Football. I decided to max enter, 150 enter one of the contests for tonight, even though it's a dog shit matchup. So I have to get to work on that. I got to get my stacks together, everything. Usually a process that takes me over an hour, but we're going to have to condense that into like 40 minutes, something like that. All right. Let's go ahead and make another lineup. And what we're going to do in this one is we're going to use that mix match strategy that I was talking about. So taking 2 stacks, probably one from each side, and then trying to mix in 2 players that make our lineup unique. And again, if you're entering GPPs, this is the way that I recommend that you guys go. It just gives you a much higher percentage of being unique. And I honestly think it has a higher chance of being optimal, right? People, when they're making these lineups, they're considering what's going to go well for players, right? Assuming that all these guys go out, they win their matches. But the truth is, there's some tough ass matches out there, especially that first match and that last match. One of these subgroups is going to lose. I mean, there's just buzzsaws going into each other. So you have to prepare for chaos, right? So I just think a lot of people are just hoping everything goes their way. And more often than not, guys, this is going to be a shit show. I think it's going to be a very close Ryder Cup. So I think this is the way to build your lineups. And to start it off, guys, we're going to go with a unique captain. So we're going to build with the captain first this time. I just want to make sure that we have enough remaining salary left per player after our captain to get the job done. So we're going to go with a very unique captain here. We're going to try and take somebody who is a little bit less of a chalky pick. So one of the guys I would be considering would be Paul Casey, right? I really like that matchup with Victor Hovland. They just kind of have a tough draw here in round 1, though. So we'll have to see about that. We could go a little bit further up the board, right? The first guy that would really come to mind, Victor Hovland. Could go to Jordan Spieth. Again, I don't really love Spieth as a captain, and I'm going to go over this again for anybody that just got into the live chat. When you use Jordan Spieth as captain, rather than somebody like Justin Thomas, not only are you going to have about twice the ownership on Jordan Spieth, your lineup's going to be much more likely to be duplicated. You're getting a guy who's a much lower projection, right? Jordan Spieth has never won a singles match before, just doesn't have the type of game that's great for that. As a partner, he seems to thrive, right? Has a very good record as a partner in cup play. So I'd much rather go to Justin Thomas, who, even if they end up going 4-0 group play, which is very likely, I mean, they're both the best players for America, and America's favored in this Ryder Cup. Justin Thomas is much more likely to win that singles match at the end. So I'd much rather go to him. So we're going to start with Justin Thomas. So he's going to be a little bit more of a chalky captain pick, but we're going to go ahead and differentiate with those 2 picks at the end, like I was talking about before. So we're going to go ahead and put Jordan Spieth in there. And again, I do think it's technically a group that could end up getting pulled apart, right? But we're going to assume that Justin Thomas goes out there. Same thing with Jordan Spieth. They win all 4 of their group matches, and Justin Thomas wins his singles match, and Jordan Spieth does not. So that's why we end up having it in there. We're going to end up needing some cheap plays. So I don't hate going to Ian Poulter. So instead of going to Ian Poulter and Rory McIlroy, everyone's going to click that, by the way. Everyone's just going to go click Ian Poulter, then click Rory McIlroy. We're just going to put Ian Poulter in there, right? We're going to assume something happens. They don't end up getting matched up there in second round. McIlroy loses, only ends up playing like 4 matches or something like that. I'm not gonna have him in every lineup, right? Rory McIlroy might be one of my favorite plays on the slate, my highest point per dollar slate up top, but we can't play him in every lineup. So let's go ahead and consider who else we could use on the European side in terms of a stack. I don't hate going to Sergio and Rahm, but again, I feel like that's going to be a little bit more of a chalky option. We could just try to mix in one other European and go with another American stack. I kind of liking that idea a little bit more. So perhaps going with somebody like Matt Fitzpatrick down here. I don't hate that idea either. And then going with just one more American stack. And you can see we have $7,500 remaining per player. So that means we can't really go to something like a Koepka. Actually, let's see if we can. Can we go to a Koepka? Yeah, we can. So we can go to a Koepka Berger stack, and we can leave enough salary. I was worried about not leaving enough salary on the table and still have $1,000 left on the table. So I absolutely love lineups like this. I think they have a much higher chance of being unique than going with a 2-2-2 or even a 4-2 kind of build. So if you guys take a look at this, we have Jordan Spieth and JT as a stack. We also have Koepka and Berger's stack. And just like Philly Boy was saying before, very good matchup. Guys that have very, very good chemistry. Could end up playing all 4 if they get off to a hot start. And then using Ian Poulter and Matt Fitzpatrick as kind of mix-in plays, this has a very good chance at being unique. So you have enough salary left on the table. You're not using 3 stacks like everyone else is going to. So I highly recommend that. So we're going to go to another comment from Jimmy. Have you considered bunker play with a little over 70? There's more than 75 bunkers on this golf course, Jimmy. Jimmy, there's so many bunkers on this golf course, they can't count them. Go to the GSCAA site right now. The GSCAA site, sorry. They literally do not have a number down for the amount of bunkers on this golf course. It just says a lot. I'm not kidding when I say that. It says a lot. The last time somebody tried to count how many bunkers were here, the first time they counted 1,064. The second time they went to count them, there was over 1,200 bunkers. They have no fucking clue how many there are. So yes, I've considered bunker play, but at the same time, they're playing them all as natural areas. It's hard to hit out bunkers no matter who you are. And there's not really any statistics out there in terms of advanced in analytics or anything like that, where we can really look at fairway bunker play. I mean, there's some stuff out there, but it's highly volatile. We don't have a massive sample size. So no, not really. I can't really put it in there, right? And yes, there's literally thousands of bunkers at this golf course. There's a joke over 1,000. I was gonna say you were like a little over 75. Yeah, it's literally 1,000 of them. It's fucking nuts, dude. Just coming off the top of my head, right? Jordan Spieth's really good out of bunkers. So if you wanted to take that kind of avenue, Jordan Spieth's a great pick, right? So Jordan Spieth's kind of like an artist out of those bunkers. He knows how to hit flyers out of them. He knows how to catch them clean, take a club or two less and thin them out of bunkers, which, by the way, is exactly what I do out of bunkers. If anyone out there struggles out of fairway bunkers, what I normally do is I choke down on a club that's one less than what I would hit for that distance, and I thin it, right? Obviously, if you're in a bunker that has a massive lip, that kind of thing, you cannot hit that kind of shot, but that's what I do. Let's go over to shot like Harden over here. So we try not to play anyone that isn't playing the first match. We try, sorry, you did a double negative. It's a little hard there. So we try not to play anyone that's playing in the first match. No, I think you should definitely play people that aren't in the first match, right? So let's go over to my projections again, just to show you exactly what I'm talking about with them. 1 second, guys. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about this, right? So a lot of the guys I have as a yes are playing in the first matches, right? There's a lot of guys that are a no that are also playing in the first matches, but just to go over a few guys that aren't playing in those first set of matches that I really do like. First of all, Tony Finau. So like I said before, if that Berger Koepka group gets off to a really bad start, that sort of thing, you can easily see Tony Finau inserted into the lineup. Actually, I expect him to play at least 4 matches, even not being in that first match in this golf tournament. And again, a lot of that comes down to his recent success, right? He was very good at his first Ryder Cup as a rookie, also good at the President's Cup. So you like to see that. Another guy I would really like to play that's on the board, Tyrrell Hatton, right? A lot of people expected him to be in this first set of matchups. I mean, why the hell is Lee Westwood out there, right? Tyrrell Hatton was supposed to be with Matt Fitzpatrick. God knows what the hell Padraig Harrington is deciding to do there. But Tyrrell Hatton, also a candidate to potentially get 4 matches. So I don't hate that. I also like Scotty Scheffler. Same kind of reason as with somebody like Tyrrell Hatton, right? If one of the American groups struggles early on, for me, I'm betting that that's Xander Cantlay, right? They're the only team for America that I'm just completely full fading other than DJ and Morikawa. I hope Scotty Scheffler ends up getting inserted into the lineup. I definitely think it's possible. Matt Fitzpatrick is starting in the first lineup, so I like him, even though he loses his first matchup. Harris English is another potential candidate, right? So you can see I don't have them down as a yes as a core play, but I will be sprinkling them in. But just because they have high potential, there is a scenario where they end up seeing a lot of time. Anyone down as a yes, so just going to clarify this for anyone who's just gotten into the chat or anything like that. I guess means that they're a core play. They're somebody that'd be willing to go to in a cash play. I see them getting plenty of playing time. They have relatively high winning percentages, that kind of thing. Anybody that's a no is an ownership fade, right? They're guys that I'm not playing. You know, the guys up top like Cantlay and Xander, of course, I have them projecting out extremely well in my projections, you know, almost 9x value for both of them. I'm not playing them because of the ownership game. Anybody that is not marked or anything like that, anyone that's a blank, those kind of guys are people that I'm going to sprinkle in GPPs, right? They're not core plays. They're not guaranteed to see a ton of playing time, but there's a lot of avenues where they can end up seeing that in a GPP format. They have a ton of high upside. So I hope that answers your question right there. I'm definitely playing people that aren't playing in the first match. There's a ton of volatility. There's going to be people that end up losing their matches, getting benched. It happens every single time. Hell, Jon Rahm almost got benched at the last Ryder Cup because he was 0-4 before the last match. Obviously, ended up playing all 5, but there were a lot of talks even from some of the European players about that potentially happening. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it can happen to anyone, even Jon Rahm, right? So yeah, that's it for those projections right there. So unless you guys have any other questions, I'm going to go on and get on out of here. Get ready for these Thursday night games. Have a whole batch of 150 lives to make. As always, guys, I appreciate you guys for stopping by. If you guys have any questions, you're watching this on replay, that sort of thing, feel free to go ahead and put your questions in the chat and I'll get to them when I see them. Again, thank you guys for stopping by, and I'll see you guys for next week in the Sanderson Farms. We're going to have all the content coming out for that. I'm going to have a course preview. I mean, everything that you see here on the channel. So look forward to that, and I'll see you guys.